Hello, my name is Michael Berger, and I have an associate's degree in mechanical engineering and a bachelor's degree in digital science. I have a certificate in AutoCAD and cybersecurity. I worked as a student IT assistant at the University of Akron, a math tutor at Stark State College, SMT operator at Airborne Electronics, and as a student team leader at Kent State University in the Federated Desktop Support Department.
And my name is Gregory Hess. I have a bachelor's degree in digital sciences from Kent State University. I have a Test-Down Security Pro certification, as well as numerous certifications through LinkedIn courses. I've held numerous IT positions in end-user support across Kent State, Beechwood Systems, and Northeast Ohio, and in my local area, in local town of Northeast Ohio, as I reside. And I'm en route to a rotational in Brooklyn, Ohio, this coming summer.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Health Awareness Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Berger, and I'm here with my co-host, Gregory Hess.
Hello, everyone.
And this week we have a special guest for our first episode of the podcast, Heather Elwell.
Hello.
She has been a speech language pathologist for over 24 years and is certified health and awareness coach specializing in brain health. She coaches people on lifestyle modifications that can help reduce their risk of dementia. Heather took a year-long sabbatical to research all the best lifestyle choices that can make the biggest impact on brain health. She created the Brain Health Mentors program to inspire, motivate, encourage, and coach individuals through the pillars of good brain health. Heather's services are all virtual, and as a result, she's been able to help people all over the world. You can follow her on Brain Health Mentors on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn for your brain health tips based on the latest brain health research, or at her website at brainhealthmentors.com. So thanks for joining us today, Heather.
I'm happy to.
How are you doing this week? How's your week been going?
It has been going great. I've had good balance in my week, so it's been a fabulous week.
That's always good to hear. How's your day going? Did you start off the day right?
Did. I took a nice long walk in nature with my golden retriever. So we walked probably 3.5 miles and met lots of furry friends, which always starts my day off right. And then I actually met a new friend for coffee today. So that was really fun.
That is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great thing to hear, especially early in the day, getting that exercise in.
Mm-hmm.
Craig, what about you? How are you doing?
I've been pretty good. It's been one of the more active weeks I've had. I went from hanging out with my friends on Tuesday to going to a networking event with the local Chamber of Commerce here in town where I reside. And things are looking up as I try to get my affairs in order as I transition from one job title to another, as going to the area of business analytics before March 1st. So I'm gonna be I've just been doing a lot of prep for that, as well as just taking things in and just using slowly building up my house gym here in my basement.
Well, that's exciting. This week I have been training a bunch of new people at the company, as I'm head of management and IT at a shipping company. And so it's been quite the busy week at work, but I was happy to get a couple exercise sessions in did a little bit of lifting this morning, so I was excited. I might even do some later tonight, so I was excited to get that in, and I'm excited to be here with you guys on the podcast. And I think Heather has some stats and statistics for us about her passions with brain health here.
Well, thank you for the introduction. And just to tell everyone a little bit more, so my background is speech language pathology. And unfortunately, in the world of dementia, we really haven't had that much control in the past. It was something that just happened to you that you really didn't have a lot of control over. And as someone that has a family history of dementia, this was very upsetting to me, thinking that something could happen that I have no control over at all whatsoever. So I was doing my continuing education in the world of speech language pathology, and I noticed over the last couple of years there's been this shift. There's been this really positive research that's coming out that there are things that we can do to reduce our risk of dementia, which is why I then became a certified health and wellness coach to be able to share this information with other people. So one of the biggest things I want to do, and I want to thank you so much for having me on and allowing me to use your platform to share this news with other people, is I want to change the stigma of brain health. This is not something for older adults. This is something for all adults. I actually have 2 teenagers at home. This is just as important for them as it is my parents that are in their 70s. This just as we're taught when we're young, that physical education, working out, moving like you did today, doing weightlifting and that kind of thing. We're always taught that our physical health is really important, but guess what? Our brain health is equally as important. And so that it's something that we all need to be working on. So I'd like to just real quick take 2 minutes and kind of tell you the state of affairs in terms of where we're trending as a society. So right now, 6 million Americans have dementia. That is expected to triple by 2050 to approximately 16 million people. Okay, so let's also look for a second at some of the other major diseases and what's happened. So between 2010 and 2019, HIV went down 65%, which is fantastic news. That is wonderful news. Heart disease went down 7.3%, which is great. Strokes went down 10.5%. I'd love to ask you, gentlemen, what do you think happened in the world of Alzheimer's? Do you think it's gone up or down between 2010 and 2019?
I would say up, as I know people have been less and less. Well, I would say since COVID, it probably got better, but I know people are being less and less, or they care less and less about their health.
Mm-hmm. So you think it's maybe has gone up? How much do you think it might have gone up?
I'm gonna say 20%.
I would say like 20-25% because of the seclusion. Also, like didn't help with the increase of the diseases like that growing, especially in the older demographic that weren't able to see their families over the past 2 years, or even still, there's still people that still don't want to venture out because of the nature of seclusion and just isolate because of greater other reasons.
Absolutely. I think those are great guesses. Again, I'm just going to review again. HIV went down 65%, heart disease went down 7.3%, stroke went down 10.5%, Alzheimer's increased, and this stat is 2019. This is pre-pandemic, okay? So factor that into this. Alzheimer's increased 145.2%.
Wow.
That's why this and again, we know that COVID absolutely impacted people's brain health. We know isolation absolutely impacted people's brain health, and that is not included in this statistic, okay? Also, let's talk about young people for a moment, okay? In February of 2020, Blue Cross Blue Shield came out with a study that they had done. People ages 30 to 44, they noticed a 373% increase in early onset dementia. So this
To 370.
373.
is 30 people ages 30 to 44, and this came out in February of 2020. Okay, so again, this is kind of a pre-COVID statistic. So it's very alarming what is happening. We live in Florida, so I can just speak to that for a moment. In the state of Florida, again, it was in January, February of 2020 that they came out with this statistic. They estimated that between 2020 and 2024, we would see a 24% increase in cases of dementia. This is prior to COVID, and this is prior to the great migration of so many people moving to the state of Florida. So this is impacting our whole world. It's impacting our country, but this is really going to impact our state and our communities as well. And that's why this information is so important. Some of the things I'm going to share today, I like to explain it like this. This is why it's so important. Dementia never impacts just one person, right? It impacts everyone around them. So we can have the ripple effect of bad by people not taking care of their health. Now, granted, there are many cases of dementia that there is nothing that we can do. However, they estimate that approximately 40% of cases could be prevented, right? So to me, that's worth it. I will take that on. I would love to do anything I can that will help reduce my risk. So that we have the butterfly effect of good, where if we're out and we're exercising and we're doing all these good things, a lot of times that impacts the people around us. Or we can have the ripple effect of bad if we're isolating, if we're not going out, if we're not saying hello to our neighbors and being out in community. So to really, as we talk today, think about little changes you can make that can have the butterfly effect of good.
Awesome. That was a beautiful summary, and that was some groundbreaking stats that really amazed me there. And we really appreciate you we really appreciate having you on the podcast today to talk about this. As our main focus is brain health today here, and we want to really drill down on the 3 most important things to improve your brain functionality and health. And the top 3 things for today I want us to really focus on is water. Are we drinking enough water? Are we drinking clean water? What are we doing to make sure that we're getting the recommended amount of water? I think they used to say, what is it, 8 glasses per day, or I think it's 15.5. Yes, let me double confirm that with the document. 15.5 cups of water for men and 11.5 cups of water for women. And I think it's important for us to remember that water helps the brain cells communicate with each other. It clears out toxins, waste, and toxins, waste that impair brain function and carries nutrients to the brain. So it's important that we maintain brain health. We could do a whole episode on water. Some things to look out for maintaining your water's like filtration. You can get filtration systems for your house that have reverse osmosis. You can get water softeners. And there's even things that can go as far as to improve flavor. So definitely something to keep an eye on. The next main focus is sleep. So sleep is very important for the brain. And it's important that we focus on not only quantity, but also quality, and that we're respecting your time zone by getting sleep at the right time, as far as going to bed when it gets dark and waking up when it's light. I think that's very important. It's part of your circadian rhythm is, I think, what it's called. And sleeping at the correct times can really help your brain health. And then the last main focus for today is exercise. And exercise, even though it's third on the list here, is not last by any measurement. Just 30 minutes a day whether it's walking, dancing, walking up and down stairs. So there's so many things you can do to just get your heart rate up and move your body that can benefit you in so many ways here.
And I think also one little note on that is to move throughout the day, which I'm very guilty of. Like I always get up, I go for a walk or a run or sometimes both, and then I, do some weight training. But then I might, if I have a lot of Zooms or calls back to back, I might be sitting for many hours during the day. So it's also important that we're moving throughout the day. If you're someone that has back to back Zoom calls, in between the Zoom calls, do some jumping jacks or go up and down the stairs a few times or, try and move, not just, it's great if you can do 30 minutes a day of exercise, but if you can also move throughout your day, that's really important as well.
That's a good point, especially for those of us that have those desk jobs where we're just sitting in front of the desk all day, clicking at the computer screen. It can be really hard for us. I've actually looked on Amazon. Yeah, that's me as well. I've actually looked on Amazon for like those walking treadmills that you put on your desk.
Mm-hmm.
You just walk on, just because I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, I have these weights, because I take my free weights to work. So I'm like, well, I got to get some exercise in, but cardio is the hardest to do when I'm at work. So I have been researching some way to get my cardio in as well as some lifting. But I think up next is we have a couple interview questions for Heather here. Greg, did you want to start with the first one, or do you want me to?
And so one of the sites that we looked up is this good talk that we found between former football player Braden Marshall and Dr. Mike here on YouTube. We'll link all of our sources and, of course, links to network with Heather at the end of the podcast on our places that we bring this out to, by the way. But in this video, he mentions how factors like just having good fitness, nutrition, and sleep can make someone feel like a superhero. And yet the doctor asked him, how Brandon Marshall, you're 42, and we're still talking about the same thing, of mental health, water, and sleep being prime factors, yet we're constantly messing with it. Why is that? And Brandon Marshall's answer was very sports-centered about how, I gotta have stuff formatted in this certain way, and sometimes I don't want to break what I've been doing, but sometimes I get too comfortable. Where I have a day where I'm just very stagnant in what I do. So I wanted your perspective on that, Heather, as to why we keep having these sort of same health questions brought up of why people aren't getting the same amount of water or sleep, activity.
I think that's a great question. We all know. I mean, whenever I give talks, everyone knows. Let me rephrase. We know the big things. We know we need to get good sleep. We know we need to exercise, right? We know we should have healthy food. We know it, fruits and vegetables are great for us, right? But it's creating habits. It's creating habits. When you food shop on the weekends, so you're set up for success during the week. Do you have a good nighttime routine so you can go to bed at a good time? Are you exercising consistently at the same time each day? When you create these habits, you're set up for such better success than just saying, I should do this. I should get to this. This is something we need to create these habits so that we don't have the thinking involved. It's just something that we do.
Exactly. I remember before, back in my high school days, I used to put health on the back seat, even though I was part of the wrestling team as the manager. I would sort of look at people trying to get into shape, and I just sit there and go no, that's not for me. All the while, I try to look at all perspectives, but at the same time, I'm looking at all these coaches say all these health tips and almost mandating it, of course, because it was a sport for the high school team. But also, I was also being ambivalent, just look at that. I'm not going to get that bad. And then COVID happened, and there was a period where I was stagnant for sometimes 2 months in a row. And This probably happened to a lot more people as well, but
I think I'd love to just, highlight something you said right there, in terms of being stagnant. I listened to a podcast over the last week, and they talked about this is another good question for you guys. If the average retiree, how much time do you think that they are spending watching television in a week? What would your guess be?
I would say for a week, it's probably at least over 70. Like, I would say 72
You say
a
72
week.
hours? Wow. I'm gonna say 20 hours.
Okay, it's in the middle. It's 47 hours. So a lot of times people's chances of dementia go up significantly when they have recently retired, because they haven't set up this new life, these new habits. So as we're talking about habits and we're talking about not getting stuck, I think it's really important that we look at life is full of many recalibrations,
Yeah,
right? From high school to college, that's a big recalibration. From college to your work life, that's a big recalibration. From that to having children, that's a big recalibration. Then we can fast forward, if we decide to retire, that's a big recalibration. So to think about, I always encourage people prior to a big life change, think about your life ahead and think about how you can have these beautiful habits in your new life. Right. So to think about if I'm going to retire soon, or maybe I'm in college now and I can work out in the middle of the day. Okay. So then what does it look like when you start working? Are you going to start exercising in the morning or start exercising in the evening, and create those habits so you don't get stuck and stop exercising completely? So to just think, talk to your future you, and what is your future you telling you, and start implementing those habits now so you don't get stuck.
exactly.
I,
It's-
I love that idea of talking to your future you. I think that ties in with our next question a little bit here, as I think we all need to talk to our future yous about sleep perspective and how we want to be seen as healthy and not uh, trying to compete with our neighbors as, oh, I stayed up this late, I got this much done,
it's almost like
but I
yeah.
suffer for it. I suffer for it later on. And I saw this growing up. I don't know if everyone had uh the same encouragement from their family members to get more done or to work harder. And it's okay if you miss this many days of sleep, but it's okay. And it was almost like they were bragging when they were like, oh, I stayed up this late and still got to work at this time, and got all this work done, and they were bragging about it.
You
Um,
hit the nail on the head. Someone described it to me this way. Unfortunately, in our country, it's a badge of honor to talk about how much we're working and how little sleep we're getting. And so thank you for bringing up this topic, because we really need to change that mentality. That is not helping anyone. Again, butterfly effect of good, right? Versus ripple effect of bad. If you are not getting adequate sleep, and let's say you're a manager, you're a very high executive level, and you are going into your workplace, what kind of, energy do you think you're putting off? And what tone are you setting for all the people that you're working with? Right? That is a ripple effect of bad. You're going to be shorter, with people that you're working with. You're going to have less patience, right? All those things, where if you get a good night's sleep and you walk in and you have more patience with the people that you're working with, you have a better disposition. Like, that's the butterfly effect of good. So we're not doing anyone any favors when we brag about how little sleep we're getting. And we can get into it in a minute, but I mean, this is very impactful for your long-term brain health. Because if you cut, and I think it's this common, like, well, I'm just, I would say most people that are coming to me, I would say this is a common thing. People are getting about 6 hours of sleep a night. That is not enough sleep. People need to be getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep minimum. Because you think, "Oh, it's just an hour less here, an hour less there." Well, you multiply that by 7 and then by 52 and then by however many years that is very impactful for your long-term brain health.
Exactly. As it even goes as far as perspectives for even like the far back as like at least also when I was growing up, it was also perspective of like when you were like in middle school age, you would almost show off like, oh, I stayed up all night. It was great. Like I just sat around my room and just stayed up all night. Like it was like an adventure or like a cool
Mhm.
idea to do that. Or up until when I tried that in college. Granted, I never stayed up in college to study, and I don't want to say that as a flex because it's not. It's not a flex to stay up all night just to get something done. It's a balancing problem. But I did have moments where we stayed up and in my dorm room at Kent State, and we would just stay up and watch movies and almost lose track of time. And by the time we realized what time it was 4:30. So we go, oh, we can't go to sleep now. It's not worth it. Like,
Right. Yeah. We almost have to be the example. And by being the example, like you were saying, butterfly effect, other people will see, hey, this person is getting the proper amount of sleep. And because of that, they're completing more tasks. They're
Mhm.
building better relationships with people around them, with their coworkers, with their friends, with their family members. Um, so I think we need to spread awareness on this perspective that we need to change, and we also have to be the example as well.
Absolutely. And it's surviving versus thriving, right?
mm-hmm.
We want to be thriving. We don't want to just be surviving. And one other thing I'd like to mention is sleep is when our brain cleans itself. So think about it like a cleaning crew coming into your brain each night that's tidying everything and cleaning everything up. So if you are depriving yourself of an hour here or 2 hours there, think 5 years, 10 years from now, your brain is not going to be as healthy because you're not getting adequate sleep. So I love to say this, in my talks. Think about it that never would you ever have a cleaning crew come to your house and ask them to leave with an hour left of work to do, right? But that's what we're doing when we're getting 6 hours of sleep a night. We are saying, it's okay, you can leave early. I don't need to have that clean, right? Let's not do that. Let's give our brain adequate time to clean itself up so we are good to go the next day. So we can perform better, at our workplace. We can be more present with our friends and we can have a more, joyful life.
Yeah.
Agreed. And I think the biggest concern, especially from my perspective, is consistently. We need to do this consistently because like I'll get like plenty of sleep on the weekends when I'm off work, but then like I get home from work and I'm like, oh, I want to do this, and this, and then by the time I get it all done, it's 4 in the morning, and I have to get up in 5 hours or whatever.
And I think
So
that's
I
a good
think
point
we need
too.
to
It's like,
keep.
what's your
It's
hard
all about the
stop?
habit.
Like I think that's a great question. We all like our work will never be done. There is always something that we're gonna have to do. So what's your hard stop time? For you to have that time to settle in and have a good nighttime routine, I always recommend to people shut off technology an hour before bed. So figure out how you can get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, back it up, subtract an hour, and that's when you need to shut down technology. Give yourself that hour before bed to, take a shower, nighttime routine, read a book if you want, but you need to know what time that is for you. What is your hard stop time? What time are you going to say each night I'm getting off technology at this time?
Yeah. And then some. Speaking of setting precedents, with our next question here, how should we like with the current state of nutrition these days, where every so often, I remember growing up in like the system where my parents would watch the news and just say like, "Oh, this is bad for you," but then like 2 months later, it's like, "Oh, never mind, it's good for you." So like, how? But when it's something as important as like just something simple as water and just nutrition, Heather, like how should we evolve our usage of like just getting nutrition when we're in the current state of affairs where, of course, I'm no expert on this, regards to like why healthy, like just being able to have like a healthy consistency of just nutrition.
If I could add to this, I think um I think another thing I'd like to add to this is right now, I feel like we're so unevolved when it comes to the purification of our water. Um, and just the idea of getting the best nutrients and the doing the best not just for our brain but for our bodies. Um, there's so much more we could be doing, and I think we need to push forward on the evolution as far as that's as far as that's concerned. What do you think we could be doing that could better our uh just our access to purification methods and clean water?
I think just a very good general question is this, because it applies to so many different things. What are you consuming? What are you consuming? What from a are a lot of times I'll have people that are telling me all the water they drink, and then they're telling me they're drinking like 3 glasses of wine each night. Well, no, like ask yourself, what am I consuming? Whether it's, things that you're looking at from a TV perspective. You mentioned news the other day, or sorry, you just mentioned news. We should not sit in that space and ruminate in negative. I always tell people when you're watching, if you're going to watch the news, you need to ask yourself, how can I help? How can I help? Can I email a senator? Can I, send money to a charitable organization that's going to handle this? Like, what are we consuming? Whether it's news, TV, water, food, what are we putting into our minds and our bodies? And let's be a little bit more intentional about that. Like maybe instead of watching the news, we could go for a walk outside in nature for 30 minutes. Maybe instead of drinking, a bunch of wine or alcohol, maybe we could, also go for a walk, or, just there are so many. We just need to be more intentional about all the things that we're consuming, not just water, not just food, but just everything. What are we consuming?
And
I
'cause-
agree. And what? Well,
right,
agree.
as because like I'm currently in like a strange circle of people, mostly post graduation guys that like to dabble with into everything. Because like it's like I recently had a guy get over like drinking every weekend, and now it's like his mind's clearer already. Well, also I see people start drifting back and forth into that mindset of like sort of chasing what they were like in college, because they're still in their 20s and they're like, oh, I'm still like I was back in college. I can go out and do stuff. When in reality, you gotta always look at the intention, like you said already, of like, what am I consuming? Where it's like, oh yeah, I was healthy living like all Monday through Friday, so I could probably party for like Saturday through Sunday. When Monday hits you harder than it does when you're trying to make it more controlled and like intentional with like what am I doing with my actions, almost like a, and I don't want to connect it to gaming at all, like almost like a choose your own story like venture where it's like this will change so much stuff down the road if I do this, even, and they could go into likes of be it water, food, smoking. I've had people have runs with all of it, and it's just saying something.
I would like to touch back on when you guys were talking about what you're consuming. I think a lot of people think of the beverages that they're consuming as having water in them.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, I think that's just isn't that like a meme or something where they're like, oh, there's water in it. I think it's like a huge meme where like that are people are talking about where they like drink like soda or like a lot of different beverages that or like they have like a little bit of water in it, but it's just mostly like chemicals and preservatives and all kinds of stuff. So I think just drinking straight water is one of the best things we can do for our bodies and brains. And um, there's a lot of technology out there when it comes to this. Um, Reverse osmosis is definitely something that I recommend that everyone go take a look into. There's a bunch of different filtration systems, way more advanced than you can imagine. Um, but yeah, that's all I wanted to say on that.
And speaking of advancements, as someone that's fully into taking in like content, I'm trying to transition to more smart material in my spare time. Apart from when I go on long walks outside my connected neighborhood here, because I do that to help enhance my brain health. Because 4 years ago, I would just watch YouTubers that weren't like really giving me the best smart content. I'll say that much. And in regards to more like reliable, more present media that's out there, like cable that my parents or your parents even had, that might still use, like where it kind of puts on things such as the little topics, like they just talk mainly about drugs or crime, but less about brain health. So do you think just general awareness and stuff, such things such as media or even social media, even let's throw that in there? Do you think awareness for brain health, just in general, is getting better or worse in this sort of media spectrum of things? Where the most I've seen is them having a movie with Anthony Hopkins come out 2 years ago about Alzheimer's. Which, granted, it was good, but there was less conversations about that and more about how he stole the award at the Oscars, which is saying something when like the sort of topic of what the whole thing was about, rather than everyone took more focus on, hey, he shouldn't have won that movie. Like the themes are getting lost. But what do you think?
Well, what's interesting is when I created the concept behind Brain Health Mentors, I initially thought I will be working with people ages 60 and up. And I'm not. The majority of the people coming to me are in their 40s and I would say majority is 40s. It's not 60, 70, and 80-year-olds. Do I have those as? Yes, I have those as clients, but usually it's their, daughters or peers that have encouraged them to come see me. And a lot of times the people that I'm working with have no memory issues at all whatsoever. They just know they do not want dementia and they want good habits in their 40s. So to me, I see that as a wonderful sign that people, and honestly, I recently spoke to a group of college students and they were so incredibly interested in what I had to say. I mean, they asked a lot of questions and asked what they could be doing now. So I honestly think it's our 20-year-olds, it's our 30-year-olds. I would say 20s to 60s. We are the change makers that can help encourage the older generation to start implementing these things. I think about my grandfather, and I actually spoke this past week, actually it was last week, to a group of educators. It was a group of teachers at an elementary school. And I thought back, and when I was growing up, I told my grandfather he should stop smoking. Yes, everyone else in the family had told him that for years. My Nana had told him that, but he didn't listen to any of them. But my brother and I kept telling my grandfather, you've got to stop smoking. You've got to stop smoking. You've got to stop smoking. It's so bad for your health. And it was us. And where did we get that information from? From our school and our teachers. And it was us, these young kids, like 10 and 12 years old, that convinced my grandfather to stop smoking. Well, brain health, we're kind of looking at the same thing. It needs to be this younger group that convinces the older population, you've got to do these things. Look, we're going to do this. You need to do this too. right? We need to bring along everyone alongside us so that so we're making it younger and cooler. That's what we need to do. We need to make this a younger, cooler thing so we can help those loved ones that
Well,
are
yeah,
older.
it's like I don't want to like put the label on it, but it's like the post 2000s youth. Even though I was born in
Mhm.
'98, we're kind of in the state of as some people call it, the we know generation, where it's like we kind of stubbornly just say, oh yeah, we know health's important, we know cigarettes are bad, we know we just go, we know blank is bad or blank is good or we should watch blank. But also, I don't know if it's that simple, because we also are very stubborn when it comes to making changes, even though ironically enough, we're the ones that like to jump between job titles every like so
Mhm.
often. So I don't know what the consistency is with that. But at the same time, we're also in the age of student athletes still going around potentially getting CTEs before they're even graduating high school. Well, and I like your point about how making we should make this a younger topic, as the most I've seen with mental health is what's helping is I'm seeing more people gravitate towards recent events where some people look towards even celebrities as like influence. As I don't know if you saw this, Chris Hemsworth has even consulted stopping acting for a while because his ancestry has dementia in it and greater
He has like
Alzheimer's.
2 copies. Yes, he's got 2 copies of the ApoE4 gene. So yes, he's bringing a lot of awareness, which is great.
Yeah, and with like such a giant, I mean, stupidly giant following Marvel has as a whole, even
Mhm.
though I'm not always a fan of their content, it's still a good, decent amount of people that you can reach in that sort of, I don't want to say market, but like, yeah, I'll say market, like in that sort of market where it's just like, how can I bring this more up, as well as the older generation with Chris Hemsworth trying to help talk to mine and Gen X and millennials like Mike here. We can talk about how
Yeah, there's
Bruce Willis even is trying to tell the older generations that grew up with his material, saying, "Hey, I'm going to slow down on things. Please look after yourselves." Because it was just a year ago, I saw people online making fun of him because they saw he was doing all these bad movies. That I watched a good article by I think it was by Variety Fair or Vanity Fair or Gawker about these movies where they cast older actors and they just do these hit or miss movies where they write everything off the old aging actor. And they're making fun of Bruce Willis for doing these because like he doesn't need that money. Why is he doing these? He's not doing good in these movies anyway. Why is he doing them? And then now we know why, sadly, with the recent diagnosis. But the awareness is there, be it how late that it might have been for Bruce Willis to come out and say this, because it was also 5 years ago he did an on stage appearance for a comedy roast of himself, where I could tell, looking back, because I'm a fan of stand-up comedy, I could tell from his appearance on there that he wasn't, all there. So that's why I was not a fan of like the people bullying him, where it's like, why is he doing this?
well, I think it's definitely a good jumping off point for awareness when it comes to that sector. But speaking of jumping off, let's go ahead and jump off into our last question about movement and exercise. Heather, what do you think are the best types of exercise and movement for enhancing brain function? How do we get that awareness out there about how exercise uh, can affect and reduce the dementia
Beyond,
risk?
exercising just being like, oh, I do it to lose weight and fat,
Right.
which is
Right,
universally known right
exactly.
now, but
There is a really fantastic neuroscientist called Wendy Suzuki, and she's done a lot of research in this area. And what they have found over and over again is it's actually cardiovascular exercise that's making the biggest impact on our brain health. So, and I'll be honest with you, I'm more of a weight training person. So that's been something I've kind
Yeah.
of had to, infuse into my workout routine is, now instead of just doing weight training, I'll go jog for a couple miles first and then go into weight training. But to think about cardiovascular exercise as miracle grow for your brain. Okay, that's when these new nerve cells are being born and the neurocircuitry is being laid and things are being repaired. So it's a different way to eat. It's not just about looking good, but think about what that's doing for your brain every time you exercise. That's really impacting health of your brain. So it's, a lot of times, the other thing is, again, I coach people through a lot of life
Hmm.
recalibration. So there's been many people that I've worked with where, they get hurt or, they hurt their elbow or their leg or this or that. If you can continue to just walk outside, walking is great. It doesn't have to be, killing yourself at some boutique gym or what, just move your body. Um, I used to in the past go to a gym and now nature is my gym. I really try and there's a lot of research behind that. Like if you walking on, I live in a neighborhood where there's lots of oak trees, right? So the surfaces are uneven. That's actually really good for my brain to be walking on surfaces. Every time I go to the beach, right? Same thing. It's uneven surfaces. That's really good for our brain health. So I encourage you, if you can exercise outside, that's wonderful. One other thing I wanted to touch on too is that when you go outside, you are the gift, right? You are the gift. So when you go outside, when you are in community, you are being the gift that you are. So every time I walk my neighborhood, I'm never just by myself. I always run into some adorable little puppy dogs, or I say hello or a wave, and it's life-giving to others, but it's also life-giving to me. All these waves and smiles and that kind of thing. So that's one thing I would like to encourage the younger generation to do is everything is so easy now. Everything can be ordered and delivered, and we don't need to be in person like we used to, even with work, right? But when you leave your house and you are outside, you are a gift to others. So it's really important to remember that every time you leave your house, you are being a gift to others. That wave, that smile, petting that adorable little puppy dog, those are great things for you, but those are also great things for other people as well.
Right, and it's just that extra little bit of energy from that as a weather permitting, because I live here in Ohio, unlike Florida, where Ohio likes to
Hmm.
be flippant with its activity. Like just this week, it went from 60 to 40 to 24 in 3 days.
That is a big change.
And I did my walk on Wednesday when it was actually hot and beautiful out, like it is now, sorta, except it's windy still. I'll go on my
Hmm.
walks with my retro iPod in my pocket, so I have next to no technology on me, and I'll just walk around my connected streets, and then into other areas that I can walk to based off of proximity. And it's just you get something greater from like that compared to how I am during my remote work days as a enterprise architect here for my house, where as I sit in my office now where I do work, I have the shades up, I have another shade up right here above me to the right, and I have three laptops, three of them right here in front of me, and it's just like you see the difference immediately as a I'm even someone that's trying to build up that as a way to just build up activity. Even when I go to these Chamber of Commerce events where I know next to nobody at them,
Right.
and but I gotta try as well as do even something as little as meeting potential new friends or old friends just in a spare time. That's what I've been enjoying doing, especially in the last 5 months alone, compared to how I was finishing up at Kent State, where I was basically stuck in a dorm for like 8 months.
Yeah. Every time you're out in community, you are being the gift that you are. So just think about that. Anytime you think, oh, should I have this delivered in or should I, be the gift that you are. Go out. Go to your favorite coffee shop. Over tip the barista, right? Like be the gift that you are. Go outside. Be in community. And we could spend 3 hours just talking about that. One little stat I'll leave you with. This is a post-pandemic stat, which I thought was very interesting. People that
Hmm.
experience loneliness are 64% more likely to develop dementia. So it is really important that you are leaving your house, that you are going out in community, even if you're not having like full-on conversations with people, micro conversations, just saying hello to the person, whatever service, you're getting, like I said, a coffee shop or getting breakfast or whatever. These small little conversations can be so life-giving, but you have to be out in community to experience them.
And then some.
I agree. You could be such a blessing to people. Just uh, you never know who you're going to meet when
Absolutely.
you're out amongst the community. So for our next section, we have a couple links here to a couple different doctors and their YouTube channels. The first one is Dr. Ekberg. The first link here is a video called "Number One Absolute Best Way to Reverse and Slow Dementia." I just wanted to briefly talk about the things he talked about in the video because I think we went into a lot of the important factors in there so far. He talks about uh, using exercise to repair your brain, using fasting, learning, and the elimination diet. Um, do you guys have any notes on that as well?
I could just speak from personal experience. And I think, we've talked a lot today about, what you're consuming. So one thing I like to encourage people to do is ask yourself, how do you feel? How do you feel? After you eat certain things, how do you feel? If you have, 3 drinks, how do you feel the next day? Do you have a little bit of difficulty with word finding? Do you have a little bit of, brain fog? How do you feel if you get together with that same group of friends and you have a mocktail instead? How do you feel the next day? How do you feel when you go out to eat to maybe somewhere that's unhealthy versus a healthier place? So same thing with what you're consuming from a visual perspective, from TV shows that you're watching or something on Netflix, or asking yourself, how do I feel? Same thing with friendships. If you get together with friends and you walk away, how do you feel? So I think that's just an important question to ask yourself with all the things you're consuming, is how do I feel, and to pay attention. So a couple years ago, I cut out gluten and dairy. I will have them from time to time, but for the most part, during the week, I'm not having them at all. And I feel so much better. But had I not paid attention to how I was feeling, I don't think I would have ever eliminated those things. So I just think it's very important to ask yourself that question after what you're eating, after getting together with friends, after you're watching something. Ask yourself, how do I feel?
Funny you should mention that. Dr. Ekberg actually has an entire video about elimination diets, and I think he has an entire video about dairy and how we should be, especially in America, how we should be eliminating most dairy from our diet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely an interesting. He has a great channel. Dr. Ekberg is spelled Ekberg. He's on YouTube. If you guys have a chance to check him out, he's definitely an excellent source of information. And then the next video from Dr. Ekberg about brain health is called "Number One Absolute Best Way to Improve Energy and Brain Fog." Some notes from this video that I found interesting in general was he was talking about how everything nowadays has antioxidants on it, and he explains how antioxidants are basically the removal of oxygen. Um, and he says, well, that can be good for other parts of the body. The brain is something that really needs the oxygen to function. And he said that we should be shying away from that stuff if we're trying to improve our brain health. Um, so he says, don't remove it completely, but probably limit it. The other thing that he mentioned is 30% of, or up to 30% of the energy you consume goes to the brain. So that was just another interesting point I brought out and was like, wow, that is a huge amount. And how much of that energy comes, or how much of that energy comes from healthy food?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so something to keep an eye on. And the last point from that video, he talks about the fact that you must get quantity and quality sleep for your brain to function properly.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely stresses the quantity and the quality. He says a lot of people focus on the quantity and let quality slip away. Do you guys have any notes on that or anything you guys want to speak about on that sector?
I would just like to mention, really, I would like to just talk about alcohol for a minute, because again, the current me, what I would say to my college me, early 20s me, and that would be, again, I feel like I did not pay attention. I did not ask that question of myself. In my college years, in my 20s, in my 30s, I was not asking myself, after consuming a meal, after drinking, alcohol, how do you feel? I was not asking myself that question. And I think if you really pay attention to what you're it's amazing how these ideas pop into your head. Well, if I go out with friends over many hours, like I could have 3 drinks, like a drink an hour over 3 hours. And then, it's interesting. I noticed the next day, gosh, like I have a lot of brain fog. Well, my word finding is horrible. You know what I mean? I'm going to go down to 2 drinks and see how that is. And same thing. I still am having a lot of, it's finding what works for us. I know now for myself, if I get together with friends, I can have a glass of wine. So I buy a very nice glass of wine and I sip it very slowly. It is about quality versus quantity, right? I know that if I have more than that, I am going to be foggy the next day. I will for sure have difficulty with word finding. So hydration, alcohol, pay attention is what I would say. Pay attention. Notice the next day, if you are out with friends and you have more than 1 drink or even a drink, notice how you interact the next day. How do you feel? Do you feel a little fuzzy or do you feel sharp? Just have your body start making notes of these things, and then it's amazing. Then you don't mind eliminating the dairy because you feel really bloated, you've noticed when you have that. You don't mind tweaking these things because you're paying attention to how you feel. So I just think if you just keep asking yourself, how do I feel after this experience? How do I feel? It's very natural to start making some changes. I have a lot of friends recently that have started, reducing the amount of, I went to a very fun party school in college. And it's interesting to me now how a lot of them are drinking. You can still have a really fun time, but we're just, we're drinking slower or we're not drinking as much. And the differences people are noticing and how much weight they've lost, how much more clear they feel, how they're performing better, how they're, much more efficient. So I think if you just pay attention, use that, as kind of like the guidebook as to, certain changes you might want to consider making.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think it will definitely take some trial and error. I think, especially when I was younger, when I was in college, I did not ask myself that question. I would go out and have a few drinks, and I'd be like out of it the next day. I was hungover. My brain was foggy from whatever I was drinking. And nowadays, I'm much more. I don't know. I'm much more focused on eating healthy and watching how much alcohol I consume. So I think I'm much better off than I used to be. But I kind of wish I did that sooner. Just from a health perspective, I think I would have been way smarter. It would have made things a lot easier.
It was like the reverse for me, by contrast, where I barely drank at all, if at all, at college. And then post graduation, all of my friends started coming back to hometown, and that's when the drinks started piling up. I was like, "Come on, we gotta go somewhere." It's like, no, come on, like no. Especially when you get into IPAs and like the whole culture behind that, which I'm not gonna get into that, where the alcohol content can go up to over 12-15%, which compared to just like saying, "Oh, I'll be fine. Just have like one Corona and I'll be fine." This is like dangerous if you have 2 of them or 3 of them even, like in the night.
So it's always smart to focus on the quality. Find something you like and then just sip it.
Enjoy in a way that's safe and that you know yourself. As well as I'm going to shout out again some more links here, such as we'll link the talk that Brandon Marshall had with Dr. Mike, as they get into more beyond questions such as the whole sort of why we struggle with homeostasis question we mentioned earlier, as they get into the sports side of things, for those of you that are into sports health, and even fans of Brandon Marshall, or looking into a younger doctor to hear about the latest in materials such as that, you can look at Dr. Mike's YouTube channel, as well as a more senior doctor, Dr. Amen, where we used some of his research just in a talking points today in a TED Talk that he did on the Orange Coast. Granted, the TED Talk's a little bit old, so apologies for quality on this site, but it has a lot of good points that we mentioned before about brain health and sort of keeping the right sort of mindset about everything, as well as just minding your sleep and consistency for sleep, as well as managing stuff such as autophagy, that even Dr. Ekberg, who we mentioned just a few minutes ago, has mentioned, as well as it's a multifaceted topic about the body's way of just fixing its cells.
Well, one of the things that they mentioned in the TED Talk that kind of piqued my interest, and I had never heard anyone say before, is that your brain is the same consistency as soft butter. And that just blew my mind. And I'm like, I did all these like high contact, intense sports growing up, and I probably got so many concussions, not realizing that my brain is this squishy. I mean, I knew it was, you know, it's good to protect, but I figured, oh, it's protected by my skull. But what you're really worried about is your brain hitting the inside of your skull, and that's how you get the concussion. And if your brain is really this soft butter consistency, then it was probably really easy to get those concussions. So just knowing that would have probably changed my whole. So I know I mean, I played basketball, I played football, I played soccer, and we did the headers in soccer. We did like, it was flag football, but like in the park on like weekends, we would play full tackle football. We didn't even have any gear. We had no pads. We would just like straight up, like just tackle people. It was pretty intense.
Yeah, so as we wrap things up here, we just want to summary that all these links are for the best health, just for the best health awareness we can put out possible. And if you like what we put out here today, you can.
One second, Greg. Before you wrap this up, I just wanted to mention one last thing about the TED Talk. So they did an average for the sleep for 1980, 2011, and they said there was this trend.
Oh yeah.
From 1980 to 2011, where people were getting less sleep. They said in 1980, people got on average 9 hours of sleep. And back in 2011, they did a similar study, and they said people on average were getting 6 hours of sleep in 2011. It's 2023 now. How much do you think people are getting as far as sleep. I know especially in college, I averaged less than 6 hours of sleep. And nowadays I try to get consistent sleep. I try to get at least the 8 hours, but it's definitely between 6 and 7 hours. I would say at least 50% of the time.
Well, and then
What about you, Greg and
I was
Heather?
gonna say, and then
How are you guys
look
doing?
at what's happened in the world of dementia, right? Look at how
Yeah.
it's all these other diseases are going down. Dementia is going way, way up. So I think I love that you've highlighted that. That was a statistic I didn't know, but it's frightening. I mean, we didn't have technology, and one thing I'll mention in regards to sleep is, again, because I'm working, I'm not working so much with older women. I'm working with a lot of women in the middle of their life, and what I found is, unfortunately, when it's quiet in the house, when the children have gone to bed, like that's they've created that as their time, their uninterrupted time, and unfortunately, it's their sleep that's impacted. So, yes, if we're working all day and we're busy, those of us that have kids are managing our kids, don't let that hour, that you're up too late be the hour to yourself. Try and carve that into another part of your day, whether it's, right after dinner, or try and just find, maybe you get up a little bit earlier, but you still are going to bed at a good time, but try and find that me time to be another time during the day, not robbing your nighttime sleep to get that time to yourself.
That's a good point. Yeah. I think that's definitely something we all need nowadays, is that hour to ourselves when we're just not overwhelmed with the rest of the world.
Mhm.
Yeah, I always preach that for like almost having. I go on beyond that from 1 hour to maybe even 6, but that doesn't coincide with like getting sleep or the way I do it sometimes. But yeah, thank you, Heather, for coming along this podcast with us, and we appreciate your time to just putting off, just giving us more of the awareness and give everyone else the awareness that they need for brain health. And
Thank you so much for having me. And I just want to say, just like we talked about how delicate your brain is, you are very special, right? So please take care of the gift that you are. It's very important.
yeah, and that's some, and uh,
It is always a pleasure talking to you, Heather. Thank you for coming on the podcast today. I think that's it for today, Greg, unless you had any more things to add.
no, please be sure to give this podcast a like and a share or a comment. We like all the feedback that we get, good or bad or constructive. Feel free to, like I said, share this with anyone that likes to hear it, be it they're into the brain health topic, or I don't know, they want to know more about ways to better themselves, or just even if they're in the market for just ways to just better yourself or just find out what you're doing wrong, then give us a whirl, and thank you for listening to us today.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.